Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars through the big window in front of him. The UHS Defiance was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was fast and strong. Jake had been flying this ship for 3 years now, and he knew every sound it made and every light on every control panel. Today felt different, though. Today felt like something bad was going to happen. Lisa Harper sat at her station working on the communication systems. She was young but very good at her job. She could talk to other ships across the galaxy and make sure all the messages got through clearly. Next to her sat Peter Kim, who was the science officer. He was always looking at his screens and checking readings from space around them. Peter was very smart and could figure out problems that made other people confused. The ship was carrying medicine to a colony called Kepler 442b. The people there were very sick with a disease that was killing many of them. The medicine in the cargo hold was the only thing that could save their lives. Jake knew that hundreds of children were waiting for this medicine, and if he did not get there soon, many of them would die. This made him want to fly faster, but he also knew he had to be careful. Ryan Torres was down in the engine room making sure everything worked right. He was the best engineer Jake had ever worked with. Ryan could fix anything and make the ship run even when it seemed impossible. Kelly Price was the navigator, and she knew how to find the best paths through space. She could get them anywhere they needed to go quickly and safely. Suddenly, all the lights on the bridge started flashing red. Lisa looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, something big is happening," she said. "I am getting readings of many ships coming out of hyperspace all around us." Jake felt his heart start beating faster, but he kept his face calm. "How many ships, Lisa?" "I count more than 40, sir, and they are all around us in a big circle." Peter was looking at his screens very fast. "Captain, these are Zephyrian ships. They are the aliens who have been taking over planets in this part of space. They say they own everything here now." Jake knew about the Zephyrians. They were tall green aliens who thought they were better than all other species. They had been moving across this part of the galaxy for months and claiming that every planet with good resources was actually their ancient burial ground. Most other species just gave up and left when the Zephyrians showed up because they had so many ships and weapons. "Sir, they are sending us a message," Lisa said. "Put it on the main screen," Jake told her. The screen filled with the image of a tall green alien with 4 arms and big black eyes. The alien looked angry and was making clicking sounds with its mouth. Lisa worked on her controls to translate the message. "The alien says we have entered their sacred territory," she said. "He says we must surrender right now or they will destroy us." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They all looked scared, but they were still doing their jobs. He thought about the sick children on Kepler 442b, who needed the medicine his ship was carrying. He thought about how the Zephyrians were just bullies who tried to scare everyone else into giving up. Then something strange happened. Instead of feeling afraid, Jake started to smile. "Lisa, open a channel to all the alien ships," he said. "Sir, what are you going to tell them?" Peter asked. "The truth," Jake said. His smile was getting bigger now. "That humans do not give up easy." Jake walked to the center of the bridge where the main camera was. He straightened his uniform and looked right into the camera. He knew that every alien ship around them would be able to see and hear him. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship UHS Defiance," he said in a strong, clear voice. "You want us to surrender, but I have a different idea. Maybe you should think about what you are doing here." The alien commander appeared on the screen again. He was making more clicking sounds that Lisa translated. "He says we are just one small ship and they have many big ships with powerful weapons. He wants to know why we are not afraid." Jake's smile got even bigger. "Tell him that humans have a saying. It goes like this. It is not about how big the dog is. It is about how much fight the dog has in it. And this dog has a lot of fight." Peter was looking at his instruments and his face went white. "Captain, they are charging their weapons." "All of them are pointing at us." Jake did not stop smiling. He walked over to Lisa's station and put his hand on her shoulder. "Lisa, I want you to record everything that happens next. Make sure other humans will know what happened here today." "Yes, sir," Lisa said, but her voice was shaking. Kelly looked up from her navigation station. "Captain, I cannot find any way out. They have us completely surrounded. Even if we could go faster than light right now, there is nowhere to go." "That is okay, Kelly," Jake said. "Sometimes the best way out is straight through." Ryan's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. "Captain, all systems are working perfectly. Whatever you're planning to do, this ship is ready. Jake nodded and looked back at the main screen where the alien commander was waiting. The alien looked confused now because Jake was still smiling instead of being scared. You see, Jake said to the alien, the thing about humans is that we do not like bullies, and when someone tries to stop us from helping sick children, we get very creative about solving the problem. The alien commander made more clicking sounds. Lisa translated again. He says he will give us one more chance to surrender before they destroy us. Jake's smile turned into something that looked more dangerous now. Tell him I said thanks but no thanks, and tell him that he might want to check his sensors more carefully before he does anything he will regret. Peter was looking at his screens again, and suddenly his eyes got very wide. Captain, I'm seeing something strange. There are some very unusual readings coming from the space around us. What kind of readings, Peter? Jake asked, but he was still smiling. It looks like there is some kind of quantum disturbance in this area. The space itself is not stable here. Jake nodded slowly. That is very interesting, Peter. Lisa asked the alien commander if his ships noticed that too. War singer HFY looked at the human captain on his screen and felt something he had not felt in a long time. The human was still smiling even though he was about to die. In all his years of conquest, HFY had never seen any species act this way when they were trapped. Most aliens begged for their lives or tried to run away. Some offered him money or valuable things, but none of them ever smiled. The human captain looked calm and confident, like he knew something that HFY did not know. This made the war singer feel uncomfortable. He had destroyed hundreds of ships and conquered dozens of worlds. He was used to seeing fear in his enemies, not this strange human confidence. Sub-Commander Vexnil, HFY called to his second-in-command, run a full scan of the area around the human ship. Check for any hidden weapons or other ships. Vexnil worked quickly on the biomechanical controls of their ship. The Zephyrian technology was different from human machines. Instead of metal and circuits, they used living tissue that could think and adapt. War singer, I'm not detecting any hidden ships or weapons. The human vessel appears to be alone. Then why is the human acting like he has already won? HFY wondered out loud. On the human ship, Jake Morrison walked around the bridge looking at all the different stations. He checked the weapon systems even though he knew they were not powerful enough to fight so many enemy ships. He looked at the shields, but they would not last long against the alien weapons. Everything looked normal except for Peter's science station, which was showing some very interesting readings. Peter, tell me more about these quantum readings you are seeing, Jake said. Peter pointed at his screen. Captain, it looks like we are sitting right on top of some kind of space-time anomaly. The readings are very weak, but they are definitely there. It is like the space around us is not completely stable. Jake nodded and his smile got bigger. Lisa, are you still recording everything? Yes, sir, the recorder is running. Good, Jake said. I want everyone to know how this happened. He walked back to the camera position. Open the channel to all enemy ships again. The alien commander appeared on the screen again. He looked angry that the humans were still not surrendering. Through the translator, Lisa heard him say, Human Morrison, you are testing my patience. Your ship will be destroyed in 60 seconds if you do not surrender now. Jake laughed out loud. War singer, that is your name, right? I have been thinking about your situation and I believe you have made a big mistake. What mistake could I have made, human? I have 47 ships and you have 1. That is true, Jake agreed. But you see, the problem is not how many ships you have. The problem is where you put them. HFY felt a chill run through his green skin. What do you mean, human? Well, Jake said in a voice like he was explaining something to a child. When you surrounded my ship, you made a perfect sphere formation. That means all your ships are exactly the same distance from my position, and that is very bad for you. Peter was working on his instruments and feeding information to Jake through a small earpiece. Jake nodded as he listened to the data. You see, War Singer? Jake continued. My science officer has just confirmed something very interesting. This area of space has an unstable quantum field running through it. Most ships would never notice it because the readings are very small. But when you put 47 large ships all in the same formation around one point, you create what we call a resonance pattern. HFY's eyes went wide. He turned to Vexnil. Check our sensors for quantum disturbances immediately. Vexnil's claws moved quickly over the living controls. After a few seconds, his face went pale. Warsinger the human speaks truth. There is a massive quantum anomaly directly beneath our formation. Our arrival has made it much stronger. How much stronger? Thexai demanded. The readings show it is building toward cascade failure. If it collapses, it will create a dimensional rift that will destroy anything within 50,000 kilometers. Every Zephyrian ship was well inside that distance. Thexai looked back at the human captain who was still smiling that same confident smile. You are bluffing, human, Thexai said, but his voice did not sound as sure as before. You would die too. Jake shook his head slowly. That is where you are wrong, Warsinger. You see, humans have been studying these quantum anomalies for many years. We know how they work and we know how to protect ourselves from them. Ryan's voice came over the ship's communication system. Captain, the quantum shielding is online and ready. We can survive a cascade event if we need to. Did you hear that, Warsinger? Jake asked. My engineer just confirmed that our ship has special shielding designed exactly for this kind of situation. Your ships do not have that protection, do they? Thexai checked with his technical officers. The answer was exactly what he feared. Zephyrian ships were built for normal space combat, not for dealing with dimensional anomalies. Kelly looked up from her navigation station. Captain, the gravitational readings are getting stronger. Whatever's happening down there, it is building up energy fast. How long do we have, Peter? Jake asked. At current acceleration rate, I estimate 15 minutes until cascade failure begins, Peter replied. Jake turned back to the main screen. Did you hear that, Warsinger? 15 minutes until your entire fleet gets pulled into a dimensional void. But here is the interesting part. If you destroy my ship right now, the explosion will destabilize the anomaly even faster. You might have only 5 minutes instead of 15. Thexai felt trapped. If he attacked the human ship, he would make the situation worse. If he did nothing, the anomaly would still destroy his fleet. His only choice was to retreat, but that would mean admitting defeat to a single human vessel. In Zephyrian culture, such a retreat would bring great shame. What do you want, human? Thexai asked through gritted teeth. That is simple, Jake replied. I want you to move your ships to a safe distance. Once you are far enough away, my people will use our quantum drives to stabilize the anomaly. Everyone lives, everyone goes home. And if we refuse? Jake's smile turned cold. Then in 15 minutes there will be 47 empty spots where your ships used to be. And my ship will still be here because we came prepared. Thexai looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. He had never been in a situation like this before. Usually he was the one with all the power-making demands of weaker species. Now a single human was telling him what to do. You have placed me in an impossible position, human, Thexai said. No, Jake replied. I have given you a choice. You can choose to live or you can choose to die. But you have to choose quickly because time is running out. Peter's voice was urgent now. Captain, the readings are accelerating. We may have less time than I thought. Jake kept looking at the alien commander. What will it be, Warsinger? Life or death? Your choice. Warsinger Thexai stared at the human captain and felt his world changing. For 300 years he had been the hunter, never the prey. He had conquered star systems and made entire species bow before the might of the Zephyrian Empire. Now one small human ship was forcing him to make a choice between retreat and death. The biomechanical walls of his command center pulsed with nervous energy, as if the ship itself could feel his uncertainty. His crew watched him with large black eyes, waiting for orders that he was afraid to give. Behind him, the tactical displays showed the quantum readings growing stronger by the minute. Sub-Commander Vexnil, Thexai said quietly, how accurate are these readings about the space anomaly? Vexnil checked the instruments again. His claws clicked against the living controls as data flowed through the ship's nervous system. Warsinger, our sensors confirm everything the human said. The quantum field is building toward cascade failure. At current rate, we have perhaps 12 minutes before dimensional collapse begins. Can our shields protect us? No, Warsinger. Our defensive systems are designed for energy weapons and plasma attacks. They cannot stop dimensional shear forces that would tear our ships apart from the inside. Thexai closed his 4 eyes and tried to think. He had built his reputation on never backing down from any fight. Other Warsingers in the fleet respected him because he always found a way to win. If he retreated now, that reputation would be destroyed. But if he stayed, his entire battle group would be destroyed along with it. On the human ship, Jake Morrison watched the alien commander struggle with his decision. Jake could see the conflict in the alien's face. Pride was fighting against survival, and Jake knew which one needed to win. Lisa, Jake said quietly, are you getting readings from the alien ships? Do they look like they are preparing to leave? Lisa checked her instruments. No, sir. They are still holding formation, but I can detect increased power fluctuations from their engines. I think they are trying to decide what to do. Peter looked up from his science station with concern on his face. Captain, the quantum readings are accelerating faster than my original calculations. The cascade failure might begin in only 10 minutes instead of 15. Jake nodded but kept his expression calm. He knew that showing any sign of worry would give the aliens reason to think he was bluffing. Kelly, do we have the power reserves needed for quantum stabilization? Kelly checked with Ryan down in engineering. After a moment, she turned back to Jake. Ryan says yes, sir. The quantum drives are fully charged and ready, but he also says the stabilization process will take at least 30 minutes to complete. Which means the alien ships need to be gone before we start, Jake said. Dr. Sandra Wells stepped forward from her position at the science station. She was the ship's expert on quantum physics and space-time anomalies. Captain, I should mention that quantum stabilization is not always successful. There is approximately a 15% chance that our attempt could make the cascade happen faster instead of stopping it. Jake looked at her seriously. What are the chances of success if we do nothing? 0%, Captain. If the cascade begins naturally, nothing in this area will survive. Then we take the risk, Jake decided. He turned back to the main screen where the alien commander was still visible. Warsinger, you are running out of time. What is your decision? Thexhai felt the weight of command pressing down on him like a heavy stone. Every Warsinger learned from childhood that retreat was the greatest shame possible. But every Warsinger also learned that dead warriors could not serve the Empire. Human Morrison, Thexhai said slowly. If I order my fleet to withdraw, what guarantee do I have that you will actually stabilize the anomaly? How do I know you will not simply escape once we are gone? Jake's smile became more genuine. Warsinger, you have my word as a human officer. But more than that, you have logic on your side. If I let the anomaly collapse, it will create a permanent dimensional rift in this area of space. That would make it impossible for anyone to travel through here safely. Since I need to deliver medicine to Kepler 442b, I have every reason to want this space to be stable. The alien commander considered this. The human's logic was sound. Creating a permanent hazard in this region would serve no one's interests. Besides, Jake continued, you will be monitoring the situation from a safe distance. If my ship tries to run away instead of fixing the problem, you can always come back and stop us. Thexhai found himself almost admiring the human's reasoning. The captain had found a solution that allowed both sides to achieve their goals. The Zephyrians could withdraw without losing too much honor, and the humans could continue their mission. But there was still the problem of what other Warsingers would think when they heard about this incident. Word would spread throughout the Empire that Thexhai had been forced to retreat by a single human ship. His career might be over even if his life was saved. As if reading his thoughts, Jake spoke again. Warsinger, I want you to know that I respect your position. You are trying to do what is best for your people just like I am trying to do what is best for mine. There is no shame in choosing wisdom over pride. Peter's voice cut through the conversation with urgency. Captain, quantum readings are at critical levels. Cascade failure will begin in approximately 8 minutes. Jake turned to face the alien commander directly. Warsinger, the time for debate is over. You need to make your choice now. Thexhai looked around his bridge one more time. His officers were all watching him with expressions of trust and loyalty. They would follow his orders even if it meant death. That knowledge made his decision easier. Sub-Commander Vexnil, he said in a voice that carried across the entire bridge, signal all ships in the battle group. We are withdrawing to safe distance immediately. Warsinger, are you certain? Vexnil asked. I'm certain. Sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when not to fight. The alien ships began to move away from the human vessel. One by one they jumped back into hyperspace until only Thexhai's flagship remained. The Warsinger looked at Jake Morrison one last time. Human captain, you have earned something rare today. You have earned the respect of a Zephyrian Warsinger. I will remember your name and I will make sure others remember it too. Thank you, Warsinger, Jake replied. I hope our species can find ways to work together instead of fighting in the future. Perhaps they can, Thexhai agreed. You have shown me that humans are more than I believed them to be. With that, the last alien ship jumped away, leaving the UHS Defiance alone in space, with a growing quantum anomaly beneath it. Peter. Jake said, Begin quantum stabilization procedures immediately. Yes, sir, Peter replied. Dr. Wells and I will coordinate with Ryan to start the process. Jake sat down in his captain's chair and let out a long breath. The hardest part was over, but they still had dangerous work ahead of them. The bridge of the UHS Defiance was quiet, except for the soft humming of instruments and the occasional beep from various stations. Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair watching the readings on the main screen as his crew prepared to attempt something that had never been tried before. Quantum stabilization was still experimental technology, and they were about to test it under the worst possible conditions. Dr. Sandra Wells worked alongside Peter Kim at the science station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she calibrated the quantum field generators. Captain, the anomaly is still growing stronger. We need to begin stabilization within the next 5 minutes, or it may become too powerful for our systems to handle. Ryan Torres's voice came through the communication system from engineering. Captain, all quantum drives are online and ready. I have rerouted power from non-essential systems to give us maximum output. But I have to warn you that this process is going to put enormous stress on every system we have. How much stress, Ryan? Jake asked. Well, sir, our reactors will be running at 110% capacity for at least 30 minutes. The quantum field generators have never been tested at these power levels, and if something goes wrong, we might lose main power completely. Jake nodded grimly. What are the chances everything will work correctly? Honestly, sir, I would say about 70%. Maybe 75 if we are lucky, and if it does not work, then we will probably be dead in about 6 minutes, Captain. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Lisa Harper was monitoring communications to make sure they could call for help if needed. Kelly Price was calculating backup escape routes even though they both knew there was nowhere to run. Everyone was doing their job professionally, but he could see the fear in their eyes. All right, people, Jake said, standing up from his chair. I want everyone to know that what we are about to do is dangerous. If anyone wants to object to this plan, now is the time to speak up. Nobody said anything. The bridge remained quiet except for the sound of instruments. Sir, Lisa said finally, we all knew the mission was dangerous when we volunteered to bring medicine to Kepler 442b. Those colonists are counting on us, and we are not going to let them down. Peter nodded in agreement. Captain, the children in that colony will die if we do not deliver the medicine. That is not acceptable. Kelly looked up from her navigation station. Sir, we all trust your judgment. If you say this is the best way forward, then that is what we will do. Jake felt proud of his crew but also worried about what he was asking them to risk. Dr. Wells, what exactly will happen when we start the stabilization process? Sandra turned from her instruments to face him. Captain, we will use the quantum drives to create a counterfield that should neutralize the anomaly. Think of it like noise cancellation technology, but for space-time disturbances. We will generate an exact opposite of the quantum patterns that are causing the instability. That sounds simple enough, Jake said. It is simple in theory, Captain, but very difficult in practice. The timing has to be perfect, and the power levels have to be exactly right. Too little power and the anomaly will continue growing. Too much power and we could accidentally make it worse. Peter pointed at his readings. Captain, the quantum cascade is beginning to accelerate. We are at the point of no return now. Jake made his decision. Begin stabilization procedures immediately. Sandra and Peter worked together at their stations while Ryan coordinated from engineering. The lights on the bridge dimmed as power was redirected to the quantum drives. Jake could feel a strange vibration through the deck plates as forces beyond normal physics began to interact around the ship. Quantum field generators at 50% power, Sandra reported. 70%, Peter added a moment later. The vibration grew stronger and Jake had to hold onto his chair to keep his balance. On the main screen, the reading showed massive energy fluctuations as two powerful forces fought against each other in the fabric of space itself. 90% power. Sandra called out. Suddenly alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Lisa quickly checked her station. Captain, we are receiving automated distress signals from multiple systems. Hull stress is approaching critical levels. Ryan's voice came through the speaker, sounding strained. Captain, the reactors are running hotter than they were designed for. I am getting warnings about possible containment failure. Can you keep them stable, Ryan? Jake asked. I will try, sir, but if the power load gets much higher, we might have a serious problem. 100% power, Peter announced. Beginning harmonic synchronization now. The ship shook violently as the quantum drives reached maximum output. Jake was thrown against the side of his chair and had to grab onto the armrest to avoid falling. Around the bridge, his crew was holding onto their stations as instruments sparked and warning lights flashed. Synchronization at 25%, Sandra reported through gritted teeth. 50%, Peter added. Jake could see sweat on both their faces as they fought to maintain control of forces that could destroy them all. The main screen showed the quantum readings fluctuating wildly as the stabilization field tried to match the frequency of the anomaly. Kelly looked up from her station with alarm. Captain, I am detecting massive gravitational waves coming from the anomaly. Whatever we are doing down there, it is having a big effect. Is it working? Jake asked. Hard to say, sir. The readings are all over the place. 75% synchronization, Sandra called out. The ship shook even more violently, and Jake heard the sound of something breaking in the back of the bridge. He turned to see that one of the instrument panels had completely failed and was now showing only static. Ryan's voice was urgent now. Captain, Reactor 2 is approaching emergency shutdown. If I lose Reactor 2, we will not have enough power to complete the process. Do whatever you have to do, Ryan, but keep those reactors online. Jake ordered. Yes, sir, I am trying. 90% synchronization, Peter announced. Jake held his breath as he waited for the final phase. Everything depended on the next few seconds. If the synchronization reached 100%, the anomaly should collapse safely. If it failed, they would all be dead very quickly. 95%, Sandra said. The shaking suddenly stopped. The bridge became eerily quiet as the quantum drives reached perfect harmony with the space-time disturbance below them. For a moment, Jake thought they had succeeded. Then every alarm on the ship started sounding at once. Captain, Lisa shouted over the noise, we are losing containment in Reactor 2. Ryan needs to shut it down immediately or it could explode. Jake looked at the main screen where the quantum readings were still showing dangerous levels. Dr. Wells, how much longer do we need full power? At least another 10 minutes, Captain. Maybe 15. Ryan, Jake called into the communication system. Can you give us 10 more minutes? There was a long pause before Ryan answered. Captain, if I keep Reactor 2 online for 10 more minutes, there is a very good chance it will explode and take the whole ship with it. Jake closed his eyes and tried to think. They were so close to success, but they needed just a little more time. The choice was between risking everyone's life or failing in their mission to save the colonists. Sir, Lisa said quietly, Reactor 2 is approaching critical temperature. We need to make a decision now. Jake Morrison stood on the shaking bridge of his ship and made the hardest decision of his life. The reactor was about to explode, but they needed more time to finish stabilizing the quantum anomaly. If they stopped now, the anomaly would collapse anyway and destroy them, along with any hope of delivering medicine to the dying colonists. Ryan, Jake said into the communication system, give me everything you have for as long as you can. We are going to finish this. Yes, sir, Ryan replied without hesitation. I will keep Reactor 2 online until the job is done or until it kills us all. Dr. Sandra Wells looked up from her instruments with determination on her face. Captain, we are at 97% synchronization. Just a little bit more and we can complete the stabilization sequence. Peter Kim worked frantically at his station trying to fine-tune the quantum field generators. The readings are starting to stabilize. I think it is working. The ship continued to shake violently as two enormous forces fought each other in the space around them. Jake could hear the sound of metal stress and electronic systems failing throughout the ship. Warning lights flashed red on every panel and the air itself seemed to vibrate with dangerous energy. 98% synchronization, Sandra announced. Lisa Harper held onto her communication station and reported what she was seeing. Captain, hull stress is at maximum safe levels, but the structure is holding. We are getting damage reports from all over the ship, but nothing critical yet. Kelly Price checked her navigation instruments even though they were useless in their current situation. Sir, the gravitational readings are starting to decrease. Whatever we are doing, it seems to be working. 99%, Peter called out. Jake felt his heart pounding as they approached the moment of truth. Everything they had worked for came down to the next few seconds. Either they would succeed in stabilizing the anomaly, or they would all die trying. Ryan's voice came through the speakers one more time. Captain, Reactor 2 temperature is in the red zone. Containment failure is imminent. I estimate 30 seconds before catastrophic explosion. How long do we need, Sandra? Jake asked. 20 seconds, Captain. Maybe 25. Ryan, you heard her. Give us 25 more seconds. I will try, sir. The ship shook harder than ever before as the quantum drives pushed beyond their design limits. Jake could smell smoke coming from somewhere, and he heard the sound of electrical fires starting in different parts of the ship. His crew continued working at their stations even though they all knew they might die at any moment. 100% synchronization achieved, Sandra announced triumphantly. Suddenly, everything went quiet. The shaking stopped and the alarms fell silent. The quantum drives powered down automatically as the stabilization sequence completed itself. Jake looked at the main screen and saw the readings dropping to normal levels. Ryan shut down Reactor 2 immediately. Jake ordered. Already on it, Captain. Emergency shutdown in progress. Peter checked his instruments with amazement. Captain, the quantum anomaly is completely stable now. The space-time disturbance has been neutralized. Jake sat down heavily in his captain's chair and let out a long breath. They had done it. Against all odds, they had stabilized a quantum cascade event and saved their own lives in the process. Damage report, he said to Lisa. Lisa worked on her instruments for several minutes before responding. Captain, we have hull damage on decks 3 and 7. Multiple electrical fires throughout the ship, but Ryan's teams are getting them under control. Reactor 2 is offline, but Reactor 1 is still functioning normally. Most importantly, the cargo hold is intact and the medicine is undamaged. Jake smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Kelly, plot a course for Kepler 442b. Best possible speed. Yes, sir, Kelly replied happily. Course laid in. As the UHS Defiance began moving toward its destination, Jake thought about what had just happened. They had faced impossible odds against a superior enemy force, and won through courage and quick thinking. More importantly, they had turned a potential disaster into an opportunity to help people who desperately needed their aid. 3 hours later, they arrived at Kepler 442b and were met by grateful colonists who had been waiting for the life-saving medicine. Jake watched through the cargo bay windows as the medical supplies were transferred to waiting transports. Within hours, those medicines would be distributed to hospitals across the planet, where they would save thousands of lives. The colony administrator came aboard to thank Jake personally. She was a middle-aged woman named Carol Watson, who had been leading the colonists through the worst crisis in their history. Captain Morrison, she said with tears in her eyes, you have saved us all. The children who were dying this morning are already getting better thanks to the medicine you brought. How can we ever repay you? Jake shook his head. No payment necessary. This is what humans do for each other. We help when help is needed. That evening, Jake sat in his quarters writing his official report about the encounter with the Zephyrian fleet. He tried to explain how they had used a quantum anomaly to force a much larger enemy force to retreat without firing a single shot. He described the dangerous stabilization procedure and how his crew had risked their lives to complete their mission. Lisa entered his quarters carrying a data pad. Captain, I have been monitoring communications from other human ships in this sector. Word is already spreading about what happened here today. What kind of word? Jake asked. The good kind, sir. Other captains are calling it the most brilliant tactical victory in recent memory. They are saying one human ship defeated an entire alien fleet through pure cleverness. Jake smiled and continued writing his report. What they do not understand is that it was not just cleverness. It was also luck and the willingness of good people to risk everything for what is right. Sir, there is something else, Lisa said. We received a message from Zephyrian space. It is from Warsinger Thexhai. Jake looked up with interest. What does he say? He says that he has reported the encounter to his superiors as a tactical withdrawal to avoid unnecessary casualties. He also says that he has recommended opening diplomatic communications with humanity because we have proven ourselves to be worthy opponents. That is good news, Jake said. Maybe something positive will come out of this whole situation. A week later, the UHS Defiance arrived back at human space and was met by a fleet of news ships wanting to hear the story firsthand. Jake found himself famous throughout human territory as the captain who smiled back at an alien fleet and made them blink first, but Jake knew the real heroes were his crew members who had trusted him enough to risk everything on a dangerous plan. Ryan Torres, who had kept the reactors running past their safety limits. Dr. Sandra Wells and Peter Kim, who had performed a miracle of quantum engineering. Lisa Harper, who had kept communications open throughout the crisis. Kelly Price, who had been ready with backup plans even when there seemed to be no hope. The story spread beyond human space and eventually reached other alien species who began to see humanity in a new light. The humans were not just another weak species to be conquered. They were clever and brave and willing to fight for what they believed in. Years later, when Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral, he would often tell new officers about the day his ship was surrounded by enemy forces. He would explain how they had turned certain defeat into victory not through superior weapons or numbers, but through courage and the refusal to give up when others were counting on them. The lesson he always emphasized was simple. Sometimes the best weapon a human can have is a smile, and the confidence that comes from knowing you are fighting for something worth dying for. When alien fleets surrounded them, the human vessel just smiled back, and that smile changed everything.